Hello everyone and welcome to our Cost Insight Conference 2020 and the case study Cost Illumination at Signify. My name is Tobias Tauber. I'm a Customer Success Manager at aPriori, and now I would like to hand it over to the Signify team. So stage is yours, gentlemen.
Okay, thank you, Tobias, for that introduction. Welcome to the Cost Illumination at Signify presentation for the Cost Insight Conference. As Tobias already mentioned, it will be presented by the three of us, Nat, Robert, Joris, that's myself. And we're part of the SPI team, Supply and Process and Innovation Group at Signify. Now it's moving. Sorry for the delay. Signify was founded as Philips and in the Netherlands in Eindhoven. And we have been in the lighting industry since almost 130 years. And our purpose is to unlock the extraordinary potential of light for brighter lives and a better world. And in the next slide, we have a small movie to introduce that better.
So, as you could see from that video, Signify is involved in quite a broad range of applications of light all across the globe. And we are proud to be able to apply the aPriori solution to each one of those businesses. Just to give you still a little bit more insight on how Signify is structured and where we are currently innovating and so forth. We have a 5-frontier strategy. The focus of everything that we do, of course, is customer centric, and we have a very local for local design of operations, while still supporting that local for local strategy with our global brands and our global manufacturing capabilities. As you also saw in the video, we have quite a broad range of products, and those products are represented by several global brands. So most of us know us as Philips, but we are also Hue, Interact, Color Kinetics, and Wiz. We have very cutting-edge technologies that we are developing that have their own venture brands as well, which is Trulifi, which is our data over light application, Bright Sites, which is our intelligent information smart pole technology for the cities, Nature Connect, which is our natural lighting for indoor offices, and 3D printing is our way of utilizing circular economy and fully closing the cycle for manufacturing. The other brands that you see there, of course, are our local for local offers that historically are serving the different regions, and also our very recent acquisition of Cooper Lighting, where we are have a very strong presence in North America, but also globally with that additional group. So as you saw in the video, we have many different applications, and currently we are also driving 5 key strategy areas of application. The first is responsibility towards the environment, so our climate action, where we are pushing absolute efficiency in each of our lighting businesses, particularly the professional segment, and also seeking to use renewable energy sources. What you see in that picture there is our solar city lighting line that we are now rolling out globally. The circular economy I had mentioned already. We are now also 3D printing several of our luminaires industrially. In food availability also, we have lighting technology solutions that enable growth of agriculture year-round, and also animal and aquaculture as well. Safety and security is a key point about enabling lighting in the cities and maintaining absolute safety and efficiency for the global trend of moving more and more towards urban areas. And indoors, we have, as I mentioned, the Nature Connect lighting, which provides a very natural environment for lighting indoors, as well as our most recent launch, an aggressive launch to help combat the COVID pandemic with our UVC lighting applications. So we also have the ability to sterilize environments with light. Then we have the digitalization frontier. So all of our applications are highly driven towards digitalization. We have what we call connected lighting applications. And we do that both in the home environment with Hue and also in the professional environment with our Interact platforms. Finally, of course, we try to make Signify an ideal place to work, multicultural and very diverse workforce, as well as driving professional development and self-education also through the digital platforms that we have internally. And aPriori is also a part of our digital solution.
Signify is the world leader in lighting. We have products in 3 key areas: light sources, luminaires, and systems and services. We have 6.2 billion of sales in 2019, 36,000 employees in 74 countries, and we are the #1 in Dow Jones Sustainability Index.
Okay, so this is introduction into Signify. So the rest of the presentation will have the following outline. So first I will talk about the SaaS implementation that we did. Robert will talk about the technology edge, and net will finish with innovation to market process. So to start, this is our Signify cost innovation ecosystem. It exists of 3 pillars: design and development, engineering and procurement, and supply and manufacturing. And at the heart of this is digital design for manufacturing. And one of the tools that we use for this is aPriori, besides scientific molding and scientific casting. So how did we come to aPriori? So we already have a long history with aPriori. It started, I think, more than 13 years ago, that we had an on-premise standalone version of aPriori with 11 users. And 2 years ago, we switched to the SaaS solutions, one of the early adapters then. And we have access to aPriori Professional, Cost Insight Design, and Cost Insight Report. And it's all supported by the IT and apps from aPriori infrastructure. And we moved from 11 licenses to 30 licenses. So how does this global user base look like within Signify? So we have 7 licenses in the US, 11 in Europe, 11 in Asia, and 1 in India. And this is all supported by 2 servers, so that everybody will experience the same way the tooling with speed and connectivity. So why did we switch? So what were the main advantages and reasons? So now we have one single source of truth. So everybody uses the same information, same price level, and standardized data. It's easy to reuse calculations within the organization. So we can even set up workflows between cost engineer and design engineers. Also faster cost calculations, because all the information is available within one environment. We don't need to search for information. So also the setup, the installation is set up that we can have our own material database in there, for example. We're still developing that one. But that's one example that all the information is right where we need it. And it gives us an easy environment to share information in a protected way. Especially the Cost Insight application is really easy to use within meetings and to show your cost breakdowns. Then, when people reassign or resign or shift positions, data is not lost. The knowledge is kept within the environment, within the data. And knowledge is not lost. And the last point is, we have in Signify, we have an IT strategy SaaS on less. So it was already for quite some time. So we already have quite some experience with SaaS solutions before we went to aPriori. So it was a no-brainer for us to go also in with aPriori to this solution. So by adding some custom fields and custom reporting, we were able to track some Signify success metrics. So, for example, we can track all the savings that we calculate with aPriori based on negos, and it even follows our 5-stage savings system that we have within Signify. Besides that, we can see which parts are redesigned and which are negotiated calculations, and we can also see the savings from that part and track it. And we can also track the usage. So how often are people using it? How do they use it? Are they using it efficient enough, so that we can, if we see there are gaps, that we can maybe shift licensor or give people extra training so that they use the tool correctly. And the last, we can even monitor which processes we use, so injection molding or die casting, and alter the environment in such a way that we can really use it to its optimum. Okay, then we go to Robert.
So where do we apply aPriori and where can you get even more out of it? In many cases, aPriori is used in procurement or purchasing departments. Where you can get the advantage is in the design department, where they design the parts. Not too fast. Should costing additional, we use it for negotiations and in NPDL projects, NPDL new product developments. Not only parts, but also tooling. Advantage there is to have insights in costing of part tooling and to get a confidence of what kind of quotes you can get back. The last one is the reduced time which you have in the total request for quotation, because you are building scenarios up front, you know what you can expect. So you don't need to have a lot of RFQs to build those scenarios, but let aPriori do the work. Here an interesting example, 3 different solutions for the same product. Different materials, different technologies, including assembly, excluding assembly, a lot of process, additional steps. aPriori is making a real fact-based comparison here. Interesting thing is here that a lot of people, different belly feelings, different experiences, have a certain edge to go to a certain solution. aPriori fact-based showed that one is the best. We had a real example in this one where we got a 40% lower cost than the first choice we made. Here on the left, a bit of a screenshot on how that looks with all the details, including cycle times, all the works behind it. In general, we see if we do a shoot costing with aPriori, there's a 10 to 15% potential cost down. What is really possible to reach in negotiations and discussions is 5 to 10%. Those fall in different buckets depending price reduction or concept savings or cost avoidance. On the right bottom, you see an example of what the gap is with the price we pay today. Early costing will guide you to a better choice, first of all, in technology and materials. Design to cost is on top of that and the next level to get to even better design. So also aPriori can help you in assisting that. The reducing time of building scenarios of different scenarios, different materials, assembly, no assembly. In total, you will see that aPriori will tell you this is not to work on. So this is not an interesting scenario you should work on. So it gives you really a focus point. This is what to work on. We now have a platform where in Signify you ask for an RFQ. And on top of that, in the same go, you can click, I also want to shoot cost next to that.
Very good. Thank you, Robert. So now let's take a look at how at Signify we are actually implementing the application across our different businesses and across our different regional locations. So here a look at the map of where we have most of our core teams working with the software. As you can see, our headquarters is in Europe, specifically in the Netherlands. But there we are supporting each of our manufacturing locations in Europe. We also have centers of excellence in Asia, in Shanghai, Shenzhen, and Noida, and in the US, in Somerset, Texas, and Mexico, as well as an operation in Brazil, where we are currently using. The licenses are strategically distributed across 3 different functions in our business as well. So S&PI is the group that Robert, yours, and myself belong to, Supply and Process Innovation. So we are the core users and essentially the experts within the organization. And then we are driving expertise throughout. So in the R&D and in procurement as a handshake essentially between those two capabilities and functions. And as you can see, we have the 30 licenses fairly evenly distributed across each of those regions. One of the key aspects to the success of our implementation is setting up these four-point teams, and we try to drive this configuration on each of our new product launches. So at the top of the group is the S&PI coach, and then with the handshake right and left between the R&D architects and the procurement project engineers, each of those three individuals is ideally outfitted with their own license, either floating within that group or then specifically targeted to a dedicated cost engineer personality within that department. And then of course, we are connected to our supply base through our commodity engineers and our supply account managers. So they are then responsible for engaging the supplier for early involvement and also already reviewing the cost insights that we derive at the earliest stages. We are currently applying it at 5 key commodities. So we are focused only on mechanical component usage still, because we are at Signify fairly new application in the last 2 years with the 30 licenses trained. But we do have die casting, sheet metal, injection molding, and specialty molding of our optics, where we also typically need to dive even deeper than aPriori with the scientific molding that was mentioned earlier, and then most recently with aluminum extrusions, as per that recent release from aPriori. Some insight into our new product development and launch process. We have several stages and milestones in there, and we call this our innovation to market business process. And there are essentially 5 different key points where we are setting up checkpoints for cost review with the aPriori package. In our architecture and platform development, so even pre-product, we have the opportunity there to look very early at architectures and scenarios and configurations of product, even before we go into the detailed part design. Then at stage 2, where indeed we are doing the final designs of the individual components to meet a specific application. Stage 3, where we are fine-tuning those designs in a handshake with engineering and procurement and the supplier to make sure that we beat our cost targets for the launch of the product. And then stage 4 as a final handshake in making sure that we come as close as possible to should cost during the RFX process. About 50% of our activity is still in stage 5, where we are also looking at all of our current spend and continually with annual and semi-annual negotiation processes looking to move our spend base even closer to the should cost that we identify with the aPriori software. So we also have this insight to how our user base also perceives and actually uses the application. So there are 30 current users within Signify and over 100 trained users, so at different levels. And each of those users have been in touch with aPriori at different stages. And as mentioned, we are frequently shifting licenses according to business need. But you can see here that indeed about 50% of our application is what we would call finalization of the product, and about 50% after finalization of the product. So there's a clear ability to use aPriori in both pre and post stages of the product lifecycle. And we see that also in the lower diagram, where we specifically highlight what types of decision making is aPriori supporting. So we are using aPriori essentially to drive smart decisions. And that can be about the actual design of the product, as I mentioned, in our architecture and platform process, or it can be material and process selections, or it can be even about appropriate target cost setting of the product itself. So we use it as a baseline model for defining our cost targets prior launch. And then together with supplier, as mentioned, first early supplier involvement to get the best innovations already integrated into the product's pre-launch, and then continuous cost management during the life cycle of the product. So all of those applications are used. So in terms of our current maturity, so we are still on the journey together with aPriori to fully realize the potential of the model that you see here. The interface to design is probably only about a year old, where we are now already using the software to begin costing at the first moment that the CAD model is ready, which is actually even before it gets into the hands of our engineers in some cases. It's when we are even doing the industrial design of the product, but we are beginning to cost there as well to drive architecture decisions. In engineering, we are also expanding rapidly the user base within our R&D group. So the cost insight interface has enabled that immensely, and now we are giving them the ability to make very rapid process and material selection decisions. In procurement also, we are building more and more specific models that are giving us insights into the costs per region. So we have very different supplier baseline cost parameters in each of our regions. So also for our own internal decisions on where to allocate products, in which factory to build globally and so forth, we can do that also with the procurement application. And then also most mature, what we have been doing already for several years, even prior the SaaS solution, is using it simply to define the target cost and close the cost gap towards should cost. And then there are three final aspects. The first is, now that we are beginning to gather those learnings, we want to also essentially create a funnel of cost innovation ideas that we can scale across different products and businesses, regardless of which business it originates in. And we want to also begin to establish best practices in design for manufacturing, so that even as our development base expands, that we continue to share those knowledges and learnings that are specific to the lighting industry, particularly in optics, that we gather those best practices. And finally, that we define best practices and a funnel for cost insights specific even to individual lighting applications. And this is how we collaborate, accelerate, and innovate. Thank you very much. And if there are any questions.
Thank you very much. We might have just 1 minute left for questions, actually. So following up along, there was one right at the beginning about what platform do you use to quote and create a should cost use to quote and create a should cost at the same time.
Sorry, can you?
That was during your part, so what platform do you use to quote and create a should cost at the same time?
So I think this is best a reference to our new digitalization platform. Yeah, so we are currently indeed employing a digitalization platform for procurement, where we track our RFQs, and also, as Robert Ottens mentioned, can also allow the supply account managers and the procurement engineers to actually place a request for a should cost calculation to run in parallel with their quotation process. So I don't want to mention the name of the platform itself, but indeed we do have a digitalization platform that we just launched in the last year to synchronize that effort.
Right. Thank you very much. And there was one question also in the chat from Zoom, which is, who at Signify initiated the use of aPriori and who is sponsoring the initiative?
So as I mentioned, we go long time back, more than 30 years within, and then actually it was still Philip, pre-Signify Philips company. So we had a name change 4 years ago. And that was initiated, but later on, so to the SaaS solution, that was completely a procurement initiative and also a procurement sponsorship within Signify.
Okay, thank you very much. We are at the end of the session. We're actually a little bit over time, so we have to stop here, unfortunately. I'm going to try to answer as many questions as possible in the chat with the help of the team, and then wish everybody a good rest of the conference, and thank you for attending today's session.